guys. Well, for once, I'm going to get to do the introduction. Kim's going to stand aside and let me let me lead off the intro. This is a guy I roll with every day, pretty much. Anyway, so that's why she's probably giving me this honor. But Ben is a really interesting guy. He's a good friend of mine. He's someone who, like, literally, we've been rolling together for I don't know 5 years plus. I don't know something. A lot of time has been spent, and like I really love Ben. He's actually the kind of guy who, whenever like there's a charity thing on, there's always he's a silent contributor, right? He's the kind of guy in the jiu-jitsu scene that I really do like you're the epitome of what the average jiu-jitsu person is like it's like you're not out there to compete and smash world championships. You train really hard, you train all the time, you train consistently, and I just count you as a really high caliber of human being. So welcome to the show, Mr. Ben Morrissey.
So to summarize that, I'm average.
Yeah, exactly, right. You're averagely good, really, really good.
The
So,
mediocre. But thank you.
That's why Kim doesn't let me do the intros, brother.
I was going to say, Anton, you bagged me up for my intro last time. That I'll take over from here on. Thanks for the future. All future intros will be on me. Thank you.
Ben's a brown belt, right? Ben is he's a really heavy top game grappler. He's working on his underneath game, I think, nowadays. But the reason why I really wanted to meet with Ben today is because he had a pretty full-on incident, actually a string of incidents not that long ago. And if you're in the mood, Ben, run us through some level of what happened so we can kind of catch up here.
Oh, look, I think it'll be nauseating to most people and quite bizarre. But on grand final day, what was that, September 26, 27, something like that, I was just stuffing around at home with the wife, watching the footy, got to half time, got a bit boring, went out to do some jobs, and I got stung by a bee on my temple. I didn't think anything of it. I've been stung a million times. I spent the majority of my life, even as a 49-year-old, in bare feet. And I had an extremely high allergic reaction to the bee venom. And bizarrely, the Thursday before, my son had also been stung, and I had to take him to emergency because his throat was closing over. So we were prescribed some EpiPens, and we had one on the bench. And so once I was stung, I was feeling a bit dopey. I told my wife, said, I don't feel right. You might have to do something. And she said, we've got the EpiPen on the bench, which she jammed in my leg.
Yeah.
And then I got up to go to emergency with her and collapsed. She called the ambos. I lost consciousness for 50 minutes, and I just woke up. Well, it was nice. I woke up with this pretty young ambulance lady between my legs, and she said, he's fighting back. And and then I was rushed off to hospital, and everything was fine after that. But what was bizarre was the severity of the reaction, which meant that the EpiPen that I was given by my wife, which is 300 milligrams, had no impact. And then they gave me another 500 milligram jabs of adrenaline, still no impact. And they put me on an infusion.
Wow.
And accordingly, with what the research determined was that I don't have a particularly high allergy to bee venom, more so my mast cells or the tryptase went mental. So I don't know the details of that all that substantially, but basically I no longer really want to get stung by bees.
Wow, man. So you're not allergic to bees, but it nearly killed you, right? Basically, like being stung.
Yeah, well, what was fascinating, and we're still trying to get a straight answer, but my blood pressure declined so substantially through the whole process that my pores opened up. I basically had no more fluid left in my body, and the process of getting such a low blood pressure, it happened so quickly. It fell from, I suppose, what is usually 120, 130, down to about 55/40. And they were saying you can die when it just slips under 90. And so we're still trying to get a straight answer how the bloody hell I'm still alive, to be perfectly honest. My heart must have worked extremely hard to account for the lack of pressure in the blood vessels and the veins and the arteries. And as I say, I woke up in just a pool of water, which it just pissed out of my body.
Wow.
But it was just amazing how the body sort of reacts and then looks after itself. And then I worried I was going to have a cardiac arrest because the heart was going so crazy, and I just kept having seizures on the way to the hospital in the ambulance because I had so much adrenaline in my body that I was just spasming every 5 seconds.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it was an interesting process. And I do remember sort of falling over and just not being able to communicate and thinking, my God, is this how I go? After everything I've done, this pissant little bee is going to be the thing that takes me out.
And Ben, any side effects now?
Absolutely nothing. They actually discharge you 4 hours later. Like it's as if it's one of those things. I sort of likened it to this might sound weird, but I likened it to a machine gun, right? So with a machine gun, you just touch this little trigger and you get this unbelievably large damage effect where you can just kill thousands of people. Whereas with a shotgun, you pull the trigger once and it explodes in this massive kick into your shoulder. This little the bee sting was just such a minor thing, and the response was so massive, and then all of a sudden there's nothing. Like the fact that I basically was gone for 50 minutes, the mic again, it got me back, and then you just walk out of hospital 4 hours later. It was bizarre.
That is amazing. And so, like, what role do you think? Obviously, you're not a doctor, you're a financial guy, but what impact did being so fit have on your recovery or the whole situation?
Look, there's no doubt they said, and we've spoken, we've spoken to a number of people, and they said there's no doubt the fitness and the low body fat had a massive positive impact. Depending upon which doctor we spoke to, some said I should be dead, some said, oh, well, you know, the blood pressure can get lower than that and you can still be okay. I was just in the hospital today and my blood pressure was 140/95, so it's not usually that low. My heart rate's pretty slow. You know, like I'm usually sort of between 50 and 65, I suppose, depending upon what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Rolling with you, Anton, it probably pushes up to 68. But
actually, I think it drops. I'm so easy.
You're working too hard, Ben. Come on.
But yeah, there's no doubt it had a positive impact. There's just no doubt about it, and we don't know to what extent. You know, to what extent it protected my body from having a cardiac arrest, to what extent it protected my organs from complete failure because they weren't getting sufficient oxygen from the blood traveling to them.
And Ben, Anton said that you had a series of mishaps. There was another one involving cutting your finger. What happened there?
Is this one of those Darwinian award shows?
I didn't plan to. Anton told me to go in this direction. I blame Anton.
It's like Ben got stung by a bee, then he walked out and stepped on a rabbit trap and then fell out the window and then burned his hand on the stove and then, you know, like that.
So what was weird was, you know, after such a dramatic event on the Saturday, on Sunday night, I'm sort of poking around the house and thinking, well, yeah, whatever, I suppose you can go to work. So I went to work Monday, and then on Tuesday we bought anyway, we bought some brand new Japanese knives. Yes, knives are sharp, I know. Anyway, they're still in the they're still in the box, but the way they
oh my God! Wait! You cut your finger through a box? Hang on, no.
Wait, okay. Let him tell the story. Go.
The way they're presented in the box is that they're on display. So the way the box is closed is I was trying to open the bottom end of it and it slipped. And I grabbed the box as it was falling. Because you grab a box. You don't grab knives, but you grab a box when it's falling.
You do grab a box.
And I shoved my hand under my armpit and said to my wife, oh, geez, I think I've cut myself. Can you have a look? I think I might need a stitch or two. And then we both looked down as the dog charges in the house and a bit of my finger was lying on the floor. And I said to my wife, I said, oh, shit, I think that's my finger.
Oh.
And then the dog comes charging in and she said, oh, we're trying to keep the dog from the finger and we're getting the sun. You've got to put it into a plastic bag. That was, hang on.
Oh, I can't see yet. Oh,
so that was in a plastic bag.
Woo!
Nice.
And then
Nice.
where are we?
This could be a movie, Ben. This is the
Yeah.
sort of
Oh,
stuff
it's
that's on,
just
like
sheer
Pulp
embarrassment.
Fiction.
Curious case of Benjamin
that's-
Morrissey.
Kind of looks
Oh,
like the inside of a
Oh wow, it's a
raw
little steak.
T-bone steak.
It's a mini steak. Oh.
Bizarre. So then, sure enough, after taking my son to Epworth on Thursday,
You went back to the same
I went
hospital where you
to
had
the
your
same-
bee sting?
So we'd been there 3 times, and they said, "Oh, listen, mate, we can't charge you again." So they didn't even charge me, and I was waiting in emergency, just sitting around, and everyone looked so sick. And I thought, "Oh Jesus, I'm going to get sick just by being here." And we've got the hand; it's pissing. Like, we've got the hand bandaged up. And I remembered a mate of mine's a plastic surgeon. And so I gave him a call, Dr. Dave Ying, God bless you. And he said, "Yeah, no worries, mate. Just wrap it up, put it on some ice, and I'll put it back on tomorrow." And sure enough, he did. And there it is. So,
That's so cool. So how does that affect grips?
oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. What's been really interesting, good segue, well played, is with the gi, I simply cannot grip with that hand. You try to, and you've just got this unusual gripping process. So I thought, well, I'll take advantage of it as an excuse to try different ways of grappling. And it's been really eye-opening because, as you say, Anton, we all roll together so much. We know each other's styles, games, tendencies, weaknesses. And I was actually, for about a week there when I came back, I was doing really well because I was not moving in a way that my partners expected me to move, despite the fact that I was down a hand. So I could still sort of grip as a hook. I thought, well, I'm now the Australian Jean-Jacques Machado because
I like it.
not of ability.
I think we've got a title for the episode.
That's it. Perfect. Because, yeah, Jean-Jacques, for anyone listening who may not know, he only has his thumb and his little finger on his left hand.
That's true.
And he's a kind of handy grappler. And I thought, well, gee, you can still. It's one of the beautiful things about this sport where the body, and it was something that I found particularly interesting, was how adaptable and how rapidly adaptable the body was to change, to overcome a weakness elsewhere. And it just happened so quickly. And because, I mean, I understand it's probably going to be difficult as a white belt, but because we've been doing it for forever and a day, you realise what else you can do. And it was a lot of fun. It was really interesting going through the process. Made those bloody dast chokes difficult though, Anton, because everyone would just crush my hand when I'm trying to squeeze it under their armpit and under their neck.
We can all have a bit of a break. So that's nice.
But yeah,
it's good. It'll help you adapt up your game. That's what I found with injuries and stuff like that.
It's exactly what it did.
Yeah.
So where are you now? Oh, sorry, it's Kim's turn. I'm hogging you. Go on, Kim.
Oh, no. Go on with that. You can.
Where are you now in terms of the recovery? Like, do you see yourself ever getting back to 100% with that finger? Like, I know the bee stings in the past, obviously, unless I bring a bee to training, but I'm not going to do that. That's not how I roll, bro.
Please.
So so the finger.
Isn't there a superhero called the Hornet or something like that? I can't remember his name.
A fight name.
There's something. No, there's like a superhero, like one of the DC characters.
Yeah,
the
Green Hornet.
Green Hornet.
Green Hornet. That's
You've got a fight name now, Ben. You're the Green Hornet.
Yeah.
The Jean-Jacques.
Jean-Jacques.
Sorry, I interrupted. Go on.
It is difficult, and they said, look, the sensation will be weird for a fairly long period of time. A lot of people have been through similar processes. It's funny, I'm walking around with my hand bandaged up and everyone, oh, what'd you do? I cut my finger. Oh, yeah, well, I cut my finger, and everyone's showing different scars. It provokes such a response from people to show the injuries that they've had. But I don't think it'll ever be exactly what it was previously, which, look, after what happened, 3 days earlier, I could have given 2 hoots about it. I didn't care if I lost the finger.
That's so true, man. Context. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas ordinarily I would have been quite taken aback by it.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. And just segueing a little bit, Ben, Anton mentioned that you're a finance guy and you have your own podcast as well. So tell us a
Yep.
bit about that.
Yeah, I've been in this game for 30 odd years. Sort of started when I left school. I was mesmerised by the 87 crash, which a lot of people listening probably don't even remember.
They weren't even born.
Weren't
Ben,
even
some of
alive.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. I was 10.
Oh,
Sorry.
you're my age,
I
Anton.
know.
So don't you better
I'm only a year or two behind you
I
guys.
was
Don't worry.
15.
I'm right here too.
But you were
So
like 15. You were 15 when you were mesmerized by this crash, right?
Look, I was, and it sort of had a delayed reaction on me because it just looked so exciting. And, you know, you've got all these guys on the floor screaming, carrying on, trying to pass on orders to buy and sell all different businesses. And I thought, what an interesting business. It looks so exciting. And by the time I got into it, sort of end of 91, early 92, the floor had disappeared. But I was still addicted to the concept of investing. It just appealed to me so dramatically. And I'd gone down the wrong path. I did a lot of sort of medical type, biology, PEB, mathematics, all that sort of stuff through school. So I'd done the wrong courses to head in that direction. And for those who do know, during the early 90s, it was in the middle of a pretty nasty recession that we had to have, according to the then Treasurer, prior to being the Prime Minister, Mr. Paul Keating. And it was a really tough time. And, interest rates were flying, and it was hard to get a job anywhere, let alone in the finance industry. And so I just kept door knocking. And I've always been a pretty persistent sort of bloke. And I went back to one place literally 8 times just to get work experience. And I think by sheer exhaustion, they said, yeah, right, mate, you can have 2 weeks work experience and you can piss off after that. And by the end of the 2 weeks, I just thoroughly enjoyed my time. And as I said, I wasn't particularly interested in going back to uni. I've always been a worker. I wanted to work. And I thought, well, bugger it, I'll just go back on Monday. And so I went back on Monday, and no one really knew any different apart from the bosses, who said, gave me my $80 check for the 2 weeks work that I'd done. And then late in the day, one of the bosses called me in and said, oh, you do realise you finished last Friday? And I said, well, yeah, but I'll just work for free. And so after a couple of weeks, they just put me on gave me a measly salary, and they were very good to me. They didn't have to take me on. And I commenced my $11,000 a year salary, which was subsequently bumped up to $13,000 within 6 to 12 months. And that's where it all started. So
amazing.
It's been really good to me. It's been particularly rewarding. I've met a lot of good people through it. I've met a lot of assholes through it. It's a bit of a den. You get the best and worst of people in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
You get some extremely clever people too, and you get some extremely greedy, stupid people. The industry's morphed quite dramatically. It's fundamentally run by compliance or legal now, so it's changed, where a lot of the excitement's disappeared, and it's really broken down now to being run by compliance, I suppose, is the best way of describing it, rather than being run as something which is an investment opportunity. You've got to make sure that all the ducks are lined up so you can't get sued, rather than trying to do the best by the investors.
You must be.
So that's
what
been
about,
okay.
What about the podcast though, Ben? How did you get started on that?
I got started on that. So you mentioned Lucy, which my Zoom name came up as she said, oh, well, you got to get out to the youngsters, so you got to do a podcast. And I said, well, I'm not going to do a podcast. You got any other ideas? So she convinced me to do it, and it had really good traction. And what it was able to do was enable me to pass on stories, discussions, which ordinarily I would have to do on a one-on-one basis on a broad platform. And it just meant people could access that discussion with a CEO, with an economist, with, whatever. And yeah, it's grown hairs. It's been year and a half. I've done almost 40 podcasts.
Cool.
It's been an interesting process. Certainly not something that I thought I was going to be doing, but what has happened now is it sort of comes out of the woodwork where people call me and ask if they can be on the podcast to get their message across.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be threatening Joe Rogan or Lex Friedman anytime soon as far as listeners, but it's been a worthy process.
Anton and I are planning to, aren't we, Anton?
Yeah, we're taking a break.
Especially with this episode. This is going to take us
That's
to
right.
some of the charts.
Watch for the
well,
dip.
well, this is the thing. Like, it's actually it's exactly the same reason. Like, we wanted to, Kim and I were talking. Kim wasn't a black belt yet, but I was like, I was getting to talk to a high level kind of grappler every, once a week. We just kind of set up this thing where we'd have a call. It was just really to empower each other around BJJ and kids.
It wasn't even that much about jiu-jitsu to start with, actually, was it? It was about everything, parenting and dating. And,
that's right. And then
we suggested bringing a guest on.
Yeah, and then we just decided, okay, we're on missions to just unearth and turn over and interview anyone who's interested in the BJJ community, so that the rest of the BJJ community can, if they don't get to meet them, can get to find out about them. And your stories today are a perfect example of the kind of stuff that not many people are going to know about, especially because you're not standing on you're not the type of grappler who's standing on the soapbox beating the drum about their story every day. That's not who you are. But you've got an amazing story to tell. So,
I've got a story.
To me, it's a mind-blowing story. It's a real reminder to not, like, okay, let me ask you this. What is your takeaway from those two experiences? As crazy as they are, like, I imagine it's some version of seize the day, right? but what is your takeaway? Like, has it changed your life?
Like I said earlier, I mean, one thing that really did surprise me was Sunday night. I sort of went to the other side, not quite, and came back. And Sunday night, all I'm doing is I'm thinking, I suppose go to work tomorrow. So, one part of it was life just rolls on. You get through life on. But another part is just to be grateful for what you got. We were actually having a really good day. My wife and I were uncharacteristically not fighting, and we were just kicking back and enjoying each other's company. And it was a beautiful day. And I was just pottering in and out. It was just one of those lovely days. Angus had gone off to a barbecue. My son and my daughter was with some friends. Oh no, she was working at the grand final. How's this? The poor old sausage. So she's a good little runner, and she busted a bone in her foot from overtraining.
A fourth visit to the hospital.
Well, she's in a moon boot, right? And so my son said, you better get to the hospital. Dad's in a bad way. And she couldn't get a cab or an Uber or anything, obviously, because it was grand final day. So she had to run to the Epworth from the MCG in a moon boot. So put her back another 2 or 3 months, the poor old sausage, because of the bloody...
Oh, wow.
Because of the bone. But, look... I've always been grateful for what I've had. I've had a good childhood. I never wanted for anything. I've always worked hard, and I've always appreciated what I've got. But it just adds that extra layer of gratitude for every moment that you've got, good, bad, and indifferent.
Yeah. We are a jiu-jitsu podcast, Ben, and we've only got a bit over 7 minutes left. But we ask pretty much all our guests how they found jiu-jitsu, how they discovered it. Can you tell us what brought you to jiu-jitsu?
Well, it's more than a 7-minute story. I was a runner, and I was really enjoying running marathons, and I overtrained. A little bit of that coming through in my daughter now, but I overtrained and I snapped my Achilles, and I had to go through the process of getting that all fixed up and recovered. And I was wandering up through Exhibition Street feeling sorry for myself. And there was a gym, and it was a MMA gym. And at that stage, I tell this, and it's quite genuine, I thought it was like Matthew, Michael, and Andrew's gym. I had no idea what the MMA actually stood for. And I was taken around the joint by an overbearing Jeremy Farafufu. And
oh, my God.
Yeah, he was in charge of marketing that day, and so I started doing the boxercise class, and I thought, that was good for a bit of fitness, and then I started striking, and then I really enjoyed the boxing because I'm long, lanky, and southpaw, and I used to give everyone grief because it was just convoluted for them to fight against. And then I was training with Sam Hibbard for a bit, and then getting a bit cocky, and he threw me on my back, and I was the classic turtle on the back of his shell. I couldn't do a thing. He just jumped on top of me and just massacred me. And he said, "You need to learn jiu-jitsu." And I remember looking at the jiu-jitsu classes thinking, I will never do that. Get some other bloke's head in my face, balls in my face. It just looked like this remarkably disgusting process of homosexuality en masse. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to be teabagged by my best mate. It's not my cup of tea. And then I fell in love with it.
So wait, what made you take the first class though? If you went from feeling like that to...
Because I was so bad when I got to the ground. Like I was just useless, absolutely useless. Once I started, it was a really interesting time because there was a lot of us. Well, like if you look at the gym now, we've got so many colours in the belts, and we were all white belt. You know, we were all just fumbling around trying to belt the shit out of each other, and it was just this really exciting time when none of us knew what we were doing, and some were stronger than others, and we were out muscling. Like you'd pull on an arm bar from completely the wrong position and just try and pull it until their arm ripped off. It was this sort of learning process, which was such a lot of fun. And yeah, we just sort of progressed from there, and I just absolutely fell in love with it, and I am lost. I couldn't get there today because I had work, and it's such a cathartic release for me, in that, you know, there's only ever been two things in my life where I've been able to clear my mind completely, and one's rock climbing, and two is combat, where you just cannot possibly think of anything else. And the number of times I get to the end of a session, you've shit talked with your mates and you've belted the crap out of each other, and you think, oh shit, that's right, I'm in a bad mood about, oh that's right, I was in a bad mood about that. And it's gone for that hour. Then you've got wonderful exercise, it's beautifully cognitive, you're learning through the whole process, you're hanging out with your mates, and I'm just absolutely addicted to it.
That's so awesome, man.
Fantastic.
Man, I really appreciate. I mean, ever since that horrible introduction I did at the start of this episode, man, you've been nothing but amazing on this show, sharing yourself, and what a story, man. And you've got a sense of humor about your near-death experiences, man. Like, so I really appreciate that too, because that's inspiring. Is that we're all going to face near death at some point, maybe death, you know. So to be able to kind of get through that, and you know, inspire others in the process, man, and then, you know, be part of.
But I think also, Ben, you're just so pragmatic about it. Like, I think that's the takeaway for me. Do you think you use that same attitude with your jiu-jitsu? Is that how? Because that's the way I'm hearing it. That you go through, just sort of get on.
I'm not a massive risk taker. Yeah, I've always just been a grinder. And I think my jiu-jitsu is a reflection of that. And you often read and hear people say, you know, the way you are on the match is what you're like in real life. I know I'm a hard worker. I don't have that flair that a lot of people have. I know that. And that's how I roll. But yeah, I'm pragmatic. I know what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. And, you know, we always try and build on those strengths. And it's interesting that Anton just said, you know, using my top game a lot. I'm a bottom game player because I used to just get beaten up so much, and everyone was so much bigger than me that I'd lie underneath them and try and work out a way back on top. But I'm quite chuffed that you said I'm a top game player, because that means I'm not always on the bottom anymore. So that's pleasing.
Man, I hate it when you get on top of me. It really sucks. So yeah,
I'm pleased to hear that.
To you, buddy.
I think my wife says the same thing.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on today. It's been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We will have this episode out in a couple of weeks, so look out for it and share it with your friends. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you on the mats.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers. Peace out, everybody.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.